the Radio Troller Entertainment Podcast Channel.
Welcome to Waxy Buildup, a podcast covering the earliest recordings from the 1880s to the mid-1920s. I'm Eric Paul Johnson, and this week it's all about cars. Or if you were in the 1920s and you want to be cool, Flivvers. I didn't know Flivver was a car either until the mid-90s. Anyways, we got a whole bunch of songs about that newfangled invention, the car. As humans will do when they invent something new, they will see who can use it faster than the other person. So one of the earliest recordings made about cars is from 1905, and the Edison Concert Band does The Auto Race.
Descriptive selection, The Auto Race, played by the Edison Concert Band. Now, gentlemen, you have your instructions complete, but I would again call your attention to rules 2 and 3. Keep to the left when overtaking, and give due warning of your approach by horn or trumpet. Get ready, number 1, go.
In the same sort of vein, although this isn't about the controlled speed of a car, this is about a car that flapped its brim or flipped its topper or shot its snapper and took off on its own. From 1904, this is Billy Murray with The Runaway Motor Car.
The Runaway Motor Car, sung by Billy Murray. Most men, I want to see some fun, so I'll tell you a story of a thing I've done. I've always wanted to be up to date, so with 3 old pals I went to speculate in a motor car, but oh dear me, I can tell you a tale of misery. We were all of us novices, but still we thought it would be a bit of fun, and so a car we bought. Then we started off in a style so grand, soon got racing with a 4 in hand. All of a sudden something went flip-flop, and we found that the blessed motor car wouldn't stop. On we dashed down every street, knocked the corns off a policeman's feet. The poor old copper went and nursed his toe, but couldn't stop the car although he shouted, whoa! On we flew and the people roared, as the fat old man was quickly floored. Flat on his back with his legs in the air, didn't stop to ask him if he paid his fare. Off we dashed like the roaring wind. Something fell off, it was Jones behind, and a couple on a tandem quickly flew on top. But still the motor car was deaf when we cried stop. There was poor old Brown shouting clear the way, and the kids in the street crying hip hooray. Of course they treated it as a lark, as the car was quickly making for a crowded park. A Salvation band playing Come Brother Come, smash went the cornet to the big bass drum. Down went the captain as he gave a yell. If he hadn't gone to glory, I feel at rest as they lifted a load off my aching chest. A sigh of relief came as I said, "Ah," for a cabby flow of language got the old
And now Cal Stewart tells the tale about buying a new car in 1912. This is Uncle Josh Buys an Automobile.
Well, sure, I've gone and done it. Yes, sir, Nancy nagged at me till I bought an automobile. It come one day last week, and Nancy ain't been as tickled over anything since her crazy quilt took a prize at the county fair as she was over that joy wagon. Well, I felt it in my bones I'd made a fool of myself, or soon would, so next day I filled it full of gasoline and got all ready to take Nancy, Jim Lawson, and Ezra Hoskins out for a ride. I got out the book of rules, and the more I read it, the less I knew about the innards of that machine. Jim said I had to turn a crank to shoot it off. I turned that crank until my eyes stuck out, but it wouldn't budge. Nancy said the bobbin was wound too tight, or else the shuttle was threaded wrong. By that time, all Punkin Center was there and giving advice. Lige Willett said I ought to talk kindly to it and offer it some oats. Hank Weaver said I ought to lead it around for a spell until it got to know me. And Cy Pettingill said maybe I hadn't watered it yet, and Deacon Witherspoon wanted to offer prayer. Well, I grabbed hold of that crank again, and it flew back and hit me on the shins, and I sat down in the yard to think it over, and Nancy said the language I used was just shameful. Just then Jim Lawson said, "Don't this plug go in somewhere?" We found where it went, and I turned the crank, and that machine began to rear and snort. It run over Hank Weaver's dog, tore a hole through Willett's picket fence, knocked over Cy Pettingill's beehives, and kept right on a-going. Well, I worked every lever that machine had, and every one made it go faster. Nancy was screaming, Ezra Hoskins was praying, and it wouldn't be right to tell what Jim Lawson was doing, but Nancy said it sounded like he was talking to the Lord. Just then we went through Ab Whitaker's wheat field and set it on fire, and I managed to steer it out onto the turnpike road, but that didn't help matters any, 'cause it only hit the road once in a while. It tore down the toll gate, ripped off one side of the covered bridge, then started off through Jabe Fisher's pasture and killed 4 sheep and a calf, and then run into a haystack and blowed up. All I've got to show for that joyride is a broken leg, some rubber tires, 6 lawsuits, and a mortgage on the farm. Nancy said if we ever own another one, we'll have a regular chiffonnier to run it. I ain't saying much, but I've got a lingering suspicion that all my joyriding will be done in an old buckboard wagon.
As with all new technologies, early cars weren't all that reliable. Don't expect to get very far without something popping off its cap or a belt snapping or something that needed to be fixed. I remember seeing a documentary on PBS like 25 years ago about 2 guys in 1903 who decided to drive from one coast to the other, and they couldn't go 10 miles without something breaking off, and they had to cobble something together to keep the thing going. Well, these next few songs are about the stability of early cars, or rather the lack of their stability. Here's Billy Murray again from 1907 with I Think I Oughtn't Auto Anymore.
I own a little auto, though I oughtn't, I'll admit. It filled my life with care. I'm losing all my hair. For every time I start it up, there's something sure to split. I don't know how to fix it, so I think I'd better quit. Last night I had a breakdown and I almost gave up hope. A washer came apart, that's why it wouldn't start. I sent a boy for washers, but he was an awful dope. He brought me back a scrubbing brush, a towel, and some soap. Oh, I I think I oughtn't ought to anymore, for autoing is losing all its fun. The tire starches wearing and the motor needs repairing. When you think it's fixed, your trouble's just begun. Pedestrians have lost their sense of humor. When you run one of them over, he'll get sore. If your auto kills a copper, some old fool will make you stop her. So I think I oughtn't ought to anymore. Last summer I went sleighing in my little runabout. I slayed some sheep and hogs and 37 dogs. If I'd have had a faster car, I've not the slightest doubt. I might have slew a cow or two if there were any out. I knocked a fellow speechless just beside the village green. He grabbed my hub and spoke. He took it as a joke. I paid a blacksmith 25 to patch up my machine. And then I found the man I struck drank all my gasoline. So I think I oughtn't ought to anymore, for autoing's a terrible expense. The farmers want to sue you, they have horses trained to do you, and if you don't hit them first, they'll take a fence or a gate. They'll collar you if they should find you speeding. It's fine for them, that's what the fine is for. Once I paid $200 for 2 automobile collars, and I think I oughtn't ought to anymore. I know a chorus girl who owns a Mercedes machine. Nobody knows his name. She owns it just the same. One day she had a breakdown for her motor acted mean. She asked me would I help her when I came upon the scene. I happened to be smoking when I got beneath her car. Cigar between my teeth, I crawled right underneath. The gasoline was leaking and it fell on my cigar. It blew that chorus girl so high I thought she was a star. Oh, I think I oughtn't ought to anymore. Her Mercedes was wrecked beyond repair. She said I broke her motor and she told me where to go to. When I asked her why, she went up in the air. It really was a wonderful explosion. A mile away the neighbors heard it roar. Now there's 7 doctors busy picking splinters out of Lizzie, so I think I oughtn't ought to anymore.
Here's another song about another guy who had a car whose parts just kept dropping off. From 1913, this is Albert Campbell with He'd Have to Get Out and Get Under to Fix Up His Automobile.
Johnny O'Connor bought an automobile. He took his sweetheart for a ride one Sunday. Johnny was packed up in his best Sunday clothes. She never broke to his side. Things went up dandy till he got down the road. Then something happened to the old machinery. That engine got his dope, off went his hat and coat. Everything needed repair. He'd have to get under, get out and get under to fix his little machine. He was just trying to cuddle his queen, but every minute when he'd begin it, he'd have to get under, get out and get under. Then he'd get back at the wheel. A dozen times they'd start to talk and kiss, and then the darned old engine he would miss, and then he'd have to get under, get out and get under, and fix up his automobile. He'd have to get under, get out and get under, to fix his little machine. He was just trying to cuddle his queen, but every minute when he'd begin it, he'd have to get under, get out and get under. Then he'd get back at the wheel. A dozen times they'd start to hug and kiss, and then the darned old engine it would miss, and then he'd have to get under, get out and get under, and fix up his automobile. Millionaire Wilson said to Johnny one day, you little sweetheart, don't appreciate you. I have a daughter who is hungry for love. She likes to ride by the way. Johnny had changes of $1,000,000. He took her riding in his little auto. But every time that he went to say marry me, it was his old story again. He'd have to get under, get out and get under to fix his little machine. He was just trying to cuddle his queen, but every minute when he'd begin it, he'd have to get under, get out and get under. Then he'd get back at the wheel. A dozen times takes time to get kissed, and then the darn old engine, it would miss, and then he'd have to get under, get out and get under, and fix up his automobile. He'd have to get under, get out and get under, to fix his little machine. He was just trying to cuddle his queen, but every minute when he'd begin it, he'd have to get under, get out and get under, and he'd get back at the wheel. A dozen times takes time to get kissed, and then the darn old engine, it would miss, and then he'd have to get under, get out and get under, fix up his automobile.
Now this next song is about the durability of a certain brand of car. Billy Murray sings about a Ford that could take anything you gave it and keep right on going. When I first heard this song, I had a Ford. It was a 1987 Ford Tempo, and the damn thing kept falling apart. Every 3 months, something needed to be fixed. Not saying all Fords are like that, but the 1987 Ford Tempo was an expensive nightmare. One of the lines here is, hit it with a brick. And believe me, if I thought hitting that car with a brick would have fixed that damn thing, I would have kept pitching bricks at it. From 1915, Billy Murray and the little Ford rambled right along.
Now Henry Jones and a pretty little queen took a ride one day in his big limousine. The car kicked up and the engine wouldn't crank. There wasn't any gas in the gasoline tank. Just about that time along came Nord, and he rambled right along in his little old Ford. He stole that queen as his engine sang a song, and his little old Ford just rambled right along. His little old Ford, it rambled right along. The little old Ford, it rambled right along. The gas burned out in the big machine, but the darned little Ford don't need gasoline. The big limousine has to back downhill. The blamed little Ford is going up still. When she blows out a tire, just wrap it up with wire, and the little Ford will ramble right along. Now they ran over glass and they ran over nails. They ran over pigs and puppy dogs' tails. They spotted a cop and shot out of sight. They rambled all day and they rambled all night. They smashed up fences and telegraph poles. They bumped into ditches and deep shut holes. They bumped into a preacher and the preacher took a ride, and the Ford rambled on with Johnny and his bride. The little old Ford, it rambled right along. The little old Ford, it rambled right along. He swung around the corner and he bumped into a mule, and the darned old jackass kicked like a fool. He kicked and he kicked and he kicked the wheel, but he had to quit kicking to save his heels. When it runs out of dope, just fill it up with soap, and the little Ford will ramble right along. You can smash the top and smash up the seat, twist it out of shape till both ends meet. Smash the body and rip out the gear. Smash up the front and smash up the rear. Smash up the fender and rip off the tires. Smash up the lamps and cut out the wires. Throw in the clutch and then forget the juice, and the little old Ford will go to beat the deuce. The little old Ford, it rambled right along. The little old Ford rambled right along. Now cut that out, you naughty tease. 'Tis a left-hand drive and a right-hand squeeze. Patch it up with a piece of string, spearmint gum or any old thing. When the power gets thick, just hit it with a brick, and the little Ford will ramble right along.
And one more from Billy Murray. I didn't plan it to have a whole bunch of Billy Murray songs in here. There just happen to be a bunch of Billy Murray songs that are about cars. Now this car song is so famous that I remember it being used in an advertising campaign in the early 21st century, or maybe even the 20-teens, more than 100 years after this record came out. But from 1905, Billy Murray again with In My Merry Oldsmobile.
Has an Oldsmobile. He loves a dear little girl. She is the queen of his gas machine. She has his heart in a whirl. Now when they go for a spin, you know she tries to learn the auto, so he lets her steer while he gets her ear and whispers soft and low. In the dark old park as they go flying along. She says she knows why the motor goes. The sparker's awfully strong. Each day they spoon to the engine till their honeymoon will happen soon. He'll win Lucille with his Oldsmobile, and then he'll fondly croon.
Time for Century Smash Hits. These are the songs that entered the pop chart 100 years ago, according to Joel Whitburn's book, Pop Memories, 1890 to 1954. And spending 2 weeks on the chart, getting to number 9, was At the End of the Road by Louis James. And I could not find this record on the internet. Put in a search for YouTube and I got a long list of End of the Road by Jerry Lee Lewis. And that's not the same guy. I found information about the record, but I couldn't find the actual record, so I'd play it for you on my guitar, maybe like a live performance, but since I couldn't find the record, I don't know how to play the song. So, I guess we're just going to have to move on, aren't we? Now this song by Isham Jones and his orchestra spent 2 weeks on the chart, getting to number 8. This is Why Couldn't It Be Poor Little Me? Waxy Buildup is a production of Radio Trolla Entertainment, Assorted Deli Meats Amalgamated. If you've got a comment, song request, or suggestion for a show topic, leave a voicemail at 623-850-3375 or email it to eloftmpodcast@gmail.com. You can financially support the podcast just by listening at ftmelo.podbean.com and sharing the link and getting other people to listen, or through PayPal using the address eloftmpodcast@gmail.com, or by subscribing to my comic strip at patreon.com/lntcs.
REPC, the Radio Trolla Entertainment Podcast Channel.